In the story of the widow's mite, Jesus is in the temple area and he's with his disciples, and he points out to his disciples, see this widow here? She's putting all she has into the collection for the temple tax. She's putting everything she's got in there. But we really misinterpret that story. Oh yeah. And so let's review the story, and let's start with how the story is usually talked about. The usual way to understand the story I find troubling. So the story usually goes like this. Jesus is in the temple area with his disciples. He points out this widow. He says, look at this widow. See, she's putting this one coin into the temple tax, and that's all the money she has. Isn't she so wonderful to give everything she has? And, you can just kind of see how Jesus praising this widow is impacting the disciples, and they're nodding, saying things like, wow, I wish we could be like her. I wish we could give everything we had to the temple. We should all give like that. But doesn't that sound a little bit off? And to make my point a little bit further, the phrase that's usually used is, don't give from your excess, give from your substance. But what does it mean to give from your substance? And I believe that means that, that you're not going to have dinner on your table tonight. You're going to have trouble paying your rent. It's going to end up being late. Maybe you'll have late fees, or you're going to risk getting kicked out because, you didn't have the money to pay it on time. Or, that insulin that you really need in order to keep your body running smoothly, go a little bit without that. Is that really what Jesus is asking for in that story? I honestly don't think so. How can I put myself in that place and see what's going on? Well, if you look just a paragraph earlier, you can see what Jesus is talking about, where he's coming from. Just right before Jesus points out this widow to his disciples, he's talking about the teachers of the law, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and how they are devouring widows' houses. Now, what are we supposed to take away from this? We're not literally talking about devouring a house, about eating it. It's not like the widow lives in this gingerbread house, like in the fairy tales, and she's been kidnapping children, and so let's have a party eating the house. Devouring a widow's house means that they have taken the money she needs for rent and used it for the temple tax. Jesus is complaining that the temple tax is too exorbitant, at least for some people. If you're particularly poor, you're not going to be able to afford it without losing the money you need for food, or without losing the money you need for rent, and you'll be living on the street and hungry. Jesus is condemning in that paragraph prior to the story the teachers of the law for expecting that much money from people, and then carry that over when he's pointing out the widow. He's not praising her. He's not condemning her either, but he's definitely not praising her. She's just a victim, and that's how Jesus is recognizing her, as a victim. He's condemning the teachers of the law, and he's condemning them for devouring widows' houses. Now think about this for a minute. He's saying, look at what's happening. See this? He's pointing out to his disciples. And when he points out to his disciples, look, she's giving everything she has to the temple tax. They're not nodding their heads saying, wow, she is so wonderful. Imagine if we could only do that. They're not saying that. They're horrified to see that this woman is going to have to go without food, because they know that the temple tax is demanded. And if the temple tax is demanded, well, then she has to give it. But the fact that she's giving everything she has to the temple tax means that the temple tax was so high that now she's not going to be able to put food on her table. They're seeing that the widow doesn't have the money she needs to live on. She doesn't have the money for food because she's been paying the temple tax. And not just food, but money for rent. She's lost her house. She's living on the streets because she's giving all her money to the temple tax. So Jesus is condemning the system where the widow is not able to keep up with her own needs because the system is draining her. Thank you for joining me for Theology Quick Notes.